Does the Punisher stand a chance when the man holding the shotgun is the only person who knows his every move? And can the Ultimate stop the Green Goblin when he threatens to execute Captain America on the White House lawn? Greetings, my comic crusaders, and welcome back to the Ordered Omnibus, where we're meticulously cataloging the history of the Marvel Universe, one issue at a time. And today we're cracking open the final archive of March of 2004, and we're going out with a bang. Literally. We're diving into the Punisher Max #2 to witness one of the most ruthless betrayals in Frank Castle's history, the return of Microchip. We also have the massive showdown in the Ultimate 6 #6, where Peter unmasks in a blind rage to take down Norman Osborn in front of the entire world. But the carnage doesn't stop there. We're looking into the origin of the Ultimate Fantastic Four as Reed Richards and Victor Van Dam prepare to test the End Zone teleporter. We're also tracking the Silver Surfer as he navigates a terrifying prophecy about the end of the world. And we see Wolverine dealing with a symbiote-infected clone in the pages of Venom. From the satirical tragedy of the X-Statix to the return of Wolfsbane and New Mutants, this batch of issues is absolutely essential, so let's open those books and get her done. But before we begin, be sure to bash that bad boy back the brigade by buying the books and bind your biography to the Battlefield Battalion. We'll be seeing you back here on the By and By. Let's open those books and get her done. Captain Marvel, Volume 5, Issue 19. We start in Los Angeles, where Marlo Chandler is trying to find some clarity about her love life, debating whether to stay with Moondragon or return to Rick Jones. Moondragon, usually the stoic, cosmic heavy lifter, reveals a surprising obsession with Earth soap operas. But their viewing party gets hijacked when Rick Jones suddenly appears on every channel. Meanwhile, on Titan, Rick is pouring his heart out in a recording booth, laying down an acoustic track about losing Marlo. He thinks that this is a private moment of catharsis, but Genis-Vell has other ideas. And in a classic display of helping, Genis uses his cosmic powers to broadcast the song to the entire planet in real time, turning Rick's private heartbreak into a global spectacle. While Rick deals with the embarrassment of becoming an accidental pop star, tensions are high back at the base. Phyla-Vell is tearing into Genis, arguing that his reputation as a galactic terror makes him unfit for the Captain Marvel title. Just as she makes her case for taking the mantle herself, the argument is cut short by a sudden, impossible appearance of Marlo. Rick is initially ecstatic, thinking that the song worked, but the reunion goes south fast. This isn't the Marlo he knows. She's cold, claiming to have been dead for centuries, and she immediately attacks him. She isn't here for romance. She's here to punish them for the future timeline where their failures allegedly led to her suffering and eventual unaliving. A brutal fight breaks out with the future Marlo overpowering Rick and holding her own against the Titans. She reveals that she lived, died, and was brought back in a way that caused immense pain, blaming Rick and Genis for not stopping the chain of events. However, the time displacement destabilizes her physical form, and she begins to gruesomely deteriorate mid-battle. Her body melts down in the pile of organic sludge, leaving Rick traumatized and broken. Genis, however, realizes that this is a warning. He managed to glean brief flashes of the future she came from, a series of specific incidences over the centuries. Genis, however, realizes that this was a warning. He managed to glean brief flashes of the future that she came from, a series of specific incidents over the centuries, and resolves to intervene, setting the stage for a mission to prevent horrific timeline from ever coming to pass. How could that go wrong? Silver Surfer, Volume 4, Issue 5. Fellow fanatics, let's take a deep dive into the prophetic shadows of Silver Surfer. We begin in Yorkshire of 1559, where the feared prophet Ursula Sontiel Shipton, better known as Mother Shipton, is scratching out uncouth rhymes about a dark future. And her track record is legendary, having correctly called the fall of Cardinal Wolsey and the bloody reign of Mary I. But her new vision is way more metal. She sees carriages without horses filling the world with woe, men's thoughts flying quick as the twinkling of an eye, and half the world dying deep drenched in blood. The vision shifts to a silver serpent descending to the earth to bring enlightenment where the children of the second sight will usher in a golden age. However, the reality of the ground in modern-day New Orleans is anything but golden, as Denise, a woman haunted by the loss of her child Ellie, wanders Bourbon Street clutching Mother Shipton's book. The cosmic drama intensifies as Stuart Acheron presents the vice president, referred to as Dick, with proof of extraterrestrial activity. Using filtered satellite imagery, Stewart reveals a silver figure on a surfboard and connects the dots to recent global abductions marked by quantum interference patterns. They board a private jet to hunt the Silver Surfer, unaware that the abducted children are being kept in what Norrin calls a zoo. Deep within the spacecraft orbiting the moon, the Silver Surfer is met by surreal aliens monitoring the kids, including Gabriel, a boy who's furious with the Surfer for brainwashing the others. The Surfer explains that he's saving them from a world destined to die, revealing that Ellie's mind is locked in such a recursive loop of destructive thought, so powerful it would kill her mother if she were ever reunited. Gabriel remains defiant, shouting that Ellie needs to know she's loved. But the Surfer insists that the universe itself is in such immeasurable pain that it cries out for an end. Norrinrad explains that these children are chosen to survive an Earth consumed by fire, a prophecy already woven into humanity's holiest of texts. As he departs for the singularity, he enters a swirling portal of ancient symbols where thought gives birth to light. The issue concludes with the staggering visual of the Silver Surfer reaching a kaleidoscopic tunnel of unblinking eyes at the center of the cosmos. It's a haunting end, lore keepers, leaving us to wonder if Norrinrad is the savior Mother Shipton predicted, or merely a herald of the inevitable. The Punisher Max, number 2. Lore keepers, things are getting messy at the funeral for the Caesar family, where mobsters are busy arguing over the next move. Frankcastle isn't about to give them a breather, though. He levels the playing field by blowing up an SUV with a bazooka because, in his world, when you get the other guy in the ropes, you keep him there. Back at the penthouse, the surveillance team is in shock, and Roth makes the mistake of calling their mystery leader Fat Boy while accusing him of being scared. The man snaps, grabbing Roth by the testicles to clarify a few things. He isn't soft. His name is Microchip, and having spent the last 10 years turning Frankcastle into the world's most efficient killing machine, he's the only one smart enough to actually be terrified. He orders Bethel to get the strike squad ready immediately. Elsewhere, Frank is catching up with a prostitute named Nadine, who mentions that the streets have gone quiet now that the Mafia higher-ups are either dead or in hiding. Frank spots a young girl working at the corner, and after asking a few questions about her age and habits, he abruptly guns down her pimp. He hands the pimp's money clip to Nadine with strict orders to send the girl home and to tell the next guy in charge to watch his step. Meanwhile, a desperate mobster named Larry Barucci meets up with the exiled Nicky Cavella and his goons Inky and Pitsy. With the local family decimated and only Big Jackie left in the hospital bed, Larry has brought Nicky in from Boston to solve the Punisher problem. Nicky, who was kicked out of New York 15 years ago for being way too ruthless, agrees to help, but he's already planning on making his stay permanent. That night, as the Punisher prepares to go hunting, Microchip and his team are watching from a van. Microchip warns them that if things go sideways, he's a dead man, but if he manages to pull this off, they need to be ready to move in. Microchip jumps out and calls out to his old partner, causing Frank to hesitate for just a split second before reaching for his Uzi. That second is all Microchip needs. He blasts Frank in the chest with a shotgun, sending him to the pavement. As a downed Castle reaches for his weapon, Microchip cold-bloodedly shoots him in the hand and then pumps a third round into him. It's a total betrayal, and things are looking way too messed up for Frank. Ultimate 6, Volume 1, Issue 6. The throwdown kicks off on a splash page that looks like it was carved of thunder, and the Ultimates hit the lawn like a superpowered stampede. A couple of juiced-up thugs and 2 bargain bin masterminds don't stand a chance against the world's premier defense squad. But comics do love balance, so somebody's got to eat dirt. And today, it's Iron Man. Well, while Tony is trying to load genetic locks into his blaster, Sandman blindsides him and buries him in grit. Norman, never one to miss a chance to be a menace, literally hurls Spiderman at Captain America, barking at the kid to finally be useful. Peter, maskless again, squares up on instinct, but Cat tells him Aunt May is already safe. And that's all Pete needs. He drops Cap, storms towards Osborn, and with pure fury in his eyes, uppercuts the Green Goblin so hard he skids across the White House lawn like a bad headline. Before Peter can follow up, Ock snatches him and flings him straight into the Oval Office, which earns him a lecture, a lightning-quick beatdown from the Wasp, who shrinks, dives into his throat, and chokes him out cold. And from there it's a fireworks show. Kraven and Sandman get erased in quick succession, Sandman practically atomized by a very irritated Tony Stark. After the chaos, Thor and Electro are locked into a lightning duel that rains sparks across the battlefield, grounding thousands of heroes and villains alike. On the lawn, the Ultimates and Spider-Man converge on Norman, who's ranting about the honor of killing Captain America. Cap's not in the mood for speeches and proceeds to beat the arrogance out of him. But behind the brawl, Harry Osborn arrives, voice cracking as he begs his father to stop before he destroys everything that's left in his life. Boxed in by the Ultimates and his own son, does Norman Osborn surrender or get down? What became of Thor and Electro in the storm overhead? And will Peter Parker ever bother putting his mask back on? Or has the kid already crossed the point where secret identity doesn't matter anymore? Ultimate Fantastic Four, Volume 1, Issue 2. Hey, lore keepers. 5 years back in the Baxter Building, Dr. Arthur Molkovic is tearing into the class again, a bitter, hunched science tyrant who treats genius kids like they're wasting his oxygen. Most of the students clown at him the second his back is turned, but one kid doesn't join the chorus. Victor Van Damme. Victor's respect is cold, clinical, and just as unwanted as his presence. The rest of the class hates him too. Too sharp, too smug, too alone. Meanwhile, Reed Richards is buried in the math of his end zone teleportation prototype, but even he can't keep his focus when Sue Storm walks in the room. One glance from her and the equations start slipping sideways. Reed heads back to his dorm and finds Victor elbow deep in his notes. He explodes, privacy shattered, trust broken, but Victor fires back that Reed's math is wrong. Reed boots him out, furious, but later, staring at the altered equations, he realizes Victor was right. And swallowing his pride, Reed approaches him again, offering partnership instead of rivalry. While that alliance sparks, Dr. Franklin Storm is dragging Molkovic into his office with General Thaddeus Ross looming behind him. They have uncovered Molkovic's illegal biotech experiments, seized his files, and fired him on the spot. The first crack in the floor that'll eventually drop him into the name of Mole Man. Jump to today, out in the Nevada desert where the final end zone teleporter prototype stands a steel monolith against the sand. Reed's old friend Ben Grimm shows up. Reed's got enough pull now to bring him right to ground zero. Reed, Ben, Johnny, Sue, and Victor suit up in the blue and black utility gear, standing shoulder to shoulder as the machine hums to life. The first test is simple. Send an apple through a dimensional breach. But Reed's instinct starts screaming. He shouts, "Wait!" But the switch has already been thrown, and a white flash erupts across the desert, swallowing everything in sight. Between the panels. Alright, my vital visionaries, and welcome back to Between the Panels. We've already dissected the pencils, the inks, and the colors, but today we're zooming in on the unsung heroes who literally gave our favorite characters their voice. I'm talking about the letterers. Now, we often take those little white bubbles for granted, but in the early 2000s, this profession underwent a massive industry-shaking revolution. And to understand why it mattered, you have to understand how brutal the old ways actually were. Before the digital age, lettering wasn't just typing, it was manual labor. We're talking about the Ames lettering guide, a little plastic tool that every pro swore by. An artist would have to physically slide this guide across the board to rule out faint pencil lines just to keep the text straight. And then they'd have to hand draw every single letter in with a dip or a technical pen. Now think about the time commitment on that. I mean, if you made a typo, you couldn't just hit the backspace. You were breaking out the whiteout, possibly scraping the paper with a razor blade, or pasting a patch over your mistake. It was a slow, hand-cramping process that could bottleneck the entire production line. But then came the digital revolution. And suddenly you had pioneers like Richard Starkings and his company Comicraft, building massive libraries of fonts. And we're not just talking about Times New Roman and Garamond, they were digitizing actual handwriting of the legendary letterers, preserving that human feel while gaining the speed of a computer. This allowed for a level of consistency the industry had never seen before. A letterer could now have a specific scream font for Wolverine, a robot font for Iron Man, and a spooky font for Doctor Strange, all instantly accessible. And let's not forget about the sound effects. In the analog days, a giant boom or snikt had to be hand-drawn into the art, and often covering up the penciler's hard work. With the digital lettering, those effects became design elements and layers that could be transparent, textured, or warped to fit the action perfectly without ruining the light art underneath. It turned lettering from a tedious necessity into a high-speed design element that could keep pace with the cinematic art styles of the 2000s. So the next time you breeze through a dialogue-heavy page in seconds, take a moment to respect the digital craftsmanship that made it possible. And now, back to the show. Venom, Volume 1, Issue 10. Hey Omnians, we're back to stories of the symbiote named Fred in the Great White North. Now the chaos kicks off mid-air as Vic and Frankie doppelgangers realize something is clamped onto their rotor. Cut to the ground and here's Fred Vereen, a snarling mashup of claws and symbiote, firing a web line straight into the sky and yanking their aircraft out of the heavens like it's nothing. The ship slams into the snow, and while Vic 2 is shaken, Frankie 2 is practically swooning, whispering that the crash was beautiful, like she wandered out of a Cronenberg audition. The doubles suit up in their stompy fun mech armor, Vic 2 planting a kiss on Frankie 2's cheek as if affection can wash away the body count that their originals left behind. Frankie 2 wastes no time diving into the creepy subtext, slinking up to the Fred Vereen with a breathy, "Take me," before he promptly ends her. Vic 2 radios headquarters, assuming the silence means the mission is accomplished, only to find a mech-armored corpse in the snow. Not Frankie 2, but the original Vic. Her handlers tell her to ignore it and move on, but the Slate cracks something open. He uploads a speech about lies, broken promises, and the endless conveyor belts of clones built from someone else's apocalypse. Then she races the gun to her head. The panel cuts away and a single blam echoes across the tundra. She then raises the gun to her head. The panel cuts away and blam! And a blam echoes across the tundra. Inside the wrecked aircraft, Patricia Robertson, half cyborg, half trauma, all grit. Here's the shot and gears up. She cracks open a vault of grenades with a wrench. Bold choice. But her suit tells her the explosives won't cut it. What she needs is the phone. The duplicate Deus Ex Nokia gets shoved into her hands, just as the Fred Vereen bursts through the wall like an evil Digimon on leg day. She stumbles, trips over cables, and fumbles through the suit's instructions. Redial, one send, while Fred Vereen tightens his grip on her throat. Then his chest starts to beep. A flash of light erupts, and Wolverine stands cruciform in the glow, delivering a deadpan, "Can you hear me now?" "Good," before collapsing. Turns out the suit planted the original phone inside Logan's chest. Healing factor or not, that's one hell of a missed notification. When the dust settles, Robertson drags the suit's severed torso outside. He assures her that the control implant in her skull kept the symbiote from taking over. She points out it still could have killed her. He shrugs. She crushes the duplicate phone in her venomized fist and tells him the implant stays. It's the only leash she's got. We cut to the suit's head webbed to a tree, left to whatever woodland justice awaits, while the Venom Robertson walks into the night. 18 days later, she's on a payphone in Buffalo, telling an old friend to let her mother know she's still alive before hanging up in tears. And somewhere else, another batch of Vic and Frankie clones taps the very line for a shadowy figure with a mustache that looks one power-up away from throwing fireballs. Finally, he says, "We can end this." And then outside, Paco Medina's Spidey swings into frame, looking ready to clean up the mess. X-Statix, Volume 1, Issue 18. Hey, Fandom Force. The dust settles after the Mr. Code kerfuffle, and it feels less like a win and more like a memorial. Fat went out like a legend, fatting up so fast that his bones cracked just to swallow an explosion to save the squad. Vivisector and Anarchist share a quiet moment over their lost friend, but the world has already moved on to the next cash grab. In Europa, the Vultures at E Records stitched together a new Hytheria Hunter single from all the lost interviews. It's catchy, it's ghoulish, and it's literally killing people. A rumor sweeps the streets, hum that tune, and you have 60 seconds to spit the lyrics, or you drop dead. And it turns out it's not a rumor. Jamie gets flattened by a falling plotted plant. A father and a son choke each other out in a panic room while mocking the melody. Dead Girl pieces it all together. Henrietta's spirit is furious at being exploited again, and she's taking it out on the living. The team teleports to Europa to crack skulls and settle scores, but not before Fat's severed foot finally falls from orbit and almost takes Dead Girl's head clean off. Things get worse when El Guapo catches the cursed tune and ends up with his own skateboard lodged into his chest. Guy and the crew realize that being accepted by the public means being treated like disposable merch, and they're done playing that game. After shaking down a civil servant dangling out a window, they trace Henrietta's murder back to the president of Europa. He feared her popularity, so he had her erased, and X-Statix storms the office, forces him to sing the cursed song, and leaves him alone with the ghost she's created. As the president learns that apologies don't mean much when a vengeful pop star is staring you down, X-Statix is still counting the losses. Fat is gone, Henrietta's gone again, and El Guapo is gone. They might be filthy, ungodly mutants to the rest of the world, but they're our filthy, ungodly mutants, and they're the only ones willing to bleed for a headline.
X-treme X-Men, Volume 1, Issue 40.
Hey archivists, the sun is shining on Via Sayada, and for once Rogue and Gambit are living the impossible dream. They can touch, they can kiss, they can breathe without fear of killing each other. Rogue is singing the Wild Thing and Gambit is grinning like he won the lottery. And Bishop's shirtless cardio routine is the only thing killing the mood. The beach clambake rolls on with Lila Cheney shredding guitar, but the shadows are already creeping in. Evangeline Whedon is hitting dead ends while trying to uncover who's pulling Jared Malloy's strings, and Sage is digging through digital ghosts, finding a disturbing link between the new X-Corp building and a grand structure from 1921 that shouldn't exist in the same footprint. The piece shatters when Sage checks the Xavier Institute and finds a nightmare. The gates are wrecked, the walls are tagged, and the core X-Men are gone without a trace. Xavier, Emma, Scott, Jean, Beast, and Logan vanished. While Sam Guthrie tries to play Big Brother at the bonfire, worrying about Paige's taste in men and outfits that would make a preacher faint. Sage is already calling Storm with a warning. The team is splintered, the Institute is compromised, and Sam has no idea that their strategist is uncovering a conspiracy far bigger than a zoning dispute. Out in the streets, Bishop's late-night run turns into a tactical breakdown in how he could neutralize his own teammates. A neck snap stops Magneto, a plasma burst ends Cable. He's literally running through the Batman list when the real one hits him. Manacle, Rolling Thunder, and Twin Mountains called Cudgel and Bludgeon ambush him hard. Bishop absorbs their energy and breaks his chains, but he never sees the true threat. A voice behind him, a hand phasing through his own skull, black fingers turning a seasoned warrior into a drooling vegetable in seconds. The monster behind it is Elias Bogan, telepathic predator and boardroom devil. Wearing an unknown body like a suit, he stands over Bishop and mocks the hierarchy of the game. What are the pawns for if not to take out Bishop? He steals Bishop's tech classes to keep the X-Men from noticing anything wrong. The Institute is empty, the trap is set, and Bogan's psychic darkness spreads. It's clear that for Bishop and the rest of the team, the fires of hell are only beginning to rise. New Mutants, Volume 2, Issue 9. The issue kicks off in Manhattan with a mystery writer suiting up in heavy leather gear, while the radio blares that Midtown traffic is a straight-up standstill. Avalanche is leveling the city and the cops are praying for the Avengers, but Ron Sinclair is already focused as she launches her bike across the police line. She straight up slams into Avalanche with her feet, using the momentum of the bike to throw him into the ground before a powerful kick to the chest leaves him low-key finished. Havoc and Nightcrawler arrive on the scene only to realize they aren't needed, and Alex is shocked when the girl removes her helmet and reveals herself to be the kid he hasn't seen in years. At the Xavier Institute, Denny Moonstar is teaching American history, while Laurie Collins is dreaming about Josh Foley in the back of the room. After a cafeteria scuffle, where Sophia uses her wind powers to dump a lunch tray over the bully of Julian Keller, talk turns to the old-school teammate who is supposed to be returning. Josh Foley jokes about another upright schoolgirl joining the ranks. But he's completely wrong when Brian walks into the room looking like a bombshell. The reunited New Mutants exchange hugs while Josh ogles the redhead, and Ron explains that she's been in the States since her mother died, and she isn't a wee lass anymore. Outside the grind store, the kids spot a homeless girl who's straight up struggling with massive electrical discharges and talking way too fast for Josh to understand. Ryan decides to act as the cool faculty member and convinces the kids to break school curfew to find the girl themselves despite Denny Moonstar's warnings. They track a girl known as Surge to a dark alley in Salem Center where she's trying to buy black market drugs to dampen her own powers. Sophia tries to help by blowing the pills away, but she accidentally leaves the girl smoked by her own power, overloading as Surge explodes with electricity. Uncanny X-Men, Volume 1, Issue 438. Welcome back, my archivists, where we're diving back into the volatile world of the Guthrie family. In this issue, the tension at the Guthrie home in Cumberland, Kentucky has escalated to a full-blown standoff that feels less like a superhero comic and more like a Western tragedy. Lucinda Guthrie finds herself staring down the barrel of the Cabot's family arsenal, a rivalry that has turned violent and ugly. Sheriff Pete is on the scene, but his attempt at mediation is clumsy at best. complicated by his obvious feelings for Lucinda and the Cabot's deep-seated hatred for mutants. The arrival of Archangel helps balance the scales, but the atmosphere remains thick with bigotry and the threat of imminent violence, showcasing just how dangerous life can become for the Guthries in their own front yard. While the main conflict rages on, the story shifts to the View restaurant for a subplot that leans heavily into Romeo and Juliet territory. Josh Guthrie, unaware of the family dynamics at play, is courting Julia Cabot, and the writing embraces the teenage melodrama of it all. Josh reveals his wings to Julia in a moment of vulnerability, and while she's charmed by his poetic nature, the reality of his heritage crashes down on them quickly. Julia's grandmother intervenes, dragging her away and revealing Josh's identity, which cements the star-crossed lovers trope. It's a heavy-handed narrative choice, but it effectively personalizes the feud, showing that the hatred between these families is going to tear apart more than just property. The situation takes a grim turn back at the farm when the true extent of the hostility is revealed. Sheriff Pete admits that he's only arrested Jeb to protect him from the Cabots, providing that the law in the town is entirely broken. However, the darkest revelation comes from Cabot himself, who claims that the death of the Guthrie patriarch, Thomas Zebulon, referred to here as Zeke, was not caused by black lung, but by a poison that his mutant physiology tried to fight off. This retcon suggests a history of murder behind the feud, and just as the Cabots prepare to escalate further, the cavalry arrives in the form of Polaris, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine, signaling that the X-Men are done playing nice and ready to defend their own. And that's where we're going to leave it today. And that draws the curtain on March of 2004, and what a way to finish a month. We saw Frank Castle gunned down by his former partners, the Ultimates proving why they're the boldest reimagining of the Avengers, and Silver Surfer operating on a cosmic scale that is both terrifying and majestic. The stories remind us that in this era of Marvel, the line between hero and villain is often just a matter of perspective, or in Microchip's case, a matter of survival. But do not close that archive just yet, my fellow fanatics, because April is just around the corner and the timeline is heating up. Next time we're jumping into April 2004, and we'll see the Exiles hopping into a new reality in issue 42, Runaways facing the consequences of their parents' legacy in issue number 11, and Thanos continuing his complex journey in issue number 6. Plus, we'll check in on Supreme Power, Ultimate Spider-Man, and the Avengers as they face the chaos of the Lionheart of Avalon. So be sure to bash that bad boy back to the brigade by buying those books, bind your biography to the Battlefield Battalion, and we'll be seeing you back here on the By and By. These are the apps we'll be focusing on next week. Same ordered time, same ordered omnibus.